Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing convenes this budget hearing. The budget hearing notices were given to the media on Monday, June 3rd, and on June 13th. And for the record, today is June 18th. This budget hearing is called to order. It is now 2:02. The committee will hear and accept testimony, both oral and written, on the budget of Department of Public Works 2020. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me this afternoon, and to my far left would be Senator Therese Terlai, and then Senator Jose Piru Terlai, the Oversight Chair of Public Works, and then the Minority Leader, Senator Will Castro, and then to my immediate right, Senator Regine Besculi, and then our Legislative Secretary, Senator Amanda Shelton. General rules for the public hearing. The conduct of this budget hearing will be as follows. Those testifying will be recognized in the order that they've signed up, and I have the director first, and then he will direct whoever needs to speak. Written testimony may be read. Lengthy written testimony should be summarized. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee. Please provide our legislative staff with your written testimony for photocopying. Testimony shall be confined to the substance. We're not going to discuss any bill other than your budget. You may relate any bill that's out there that deals with your budget during this budget hearing. Persons will be allowed to present oral testimony more than once. Once you're done, you may be asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony as may be desired by the members of the panel. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for the proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and or may be asked to leave or be escorted, removed from the room. Fair warning, if you don't maintain proper form and decorum, you will be escorted out. And I will leave that on the director to take care of that with his staff here, right? And when you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name for the record. Even though we know pretty much who you all are, just the first chance you get to speak, say you're Frank Taitano from Zigu, and then we know it's Frank, and so forth, okay? See, I got to pick on Frank because we live in Zigu. We will now begin to hear testimonies on the fiscal year 2020 budget of the Department of Public Works. Mr. Arreola, I understand you have a PowerPoint presentation. You want to start with that, or are you going to start with your...
I'll read my, thank you, Senator. I'll read my testimony and the PowerPoint will go simultaneous with it. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Please.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and great to see all of you senators here. Thank you so much for joining us at our budget hearing. Before I begin, let me just introduce our panel here from Department of Public Works. Let me start with my far right. This is Mr. David Richards. He's the Acting Superintendent for Transportation Maintenance. Next to him is Mr. Frank Taitano. He's the Superintendent for School Bus Operations. Next to him is Mr. Masood Temuri. He is our newly acquired Chief Engineer for the department. And of course, we have Ms. Arlene Pierce, our Controller. Next to me is our Deputy, Jesse Garcia. And we have Linda Ibanez. She is our Special Projects Coordinator. Let's see. Next to her is Mr. Darren Bo Munya. He's the Superintendent of Highway Maintenance and Construction. And then next to him is we have Richard Quintiniza Jr., the Manager for Building Maintenance. And this would be our panel today. Okay. As I mentioned, Senator, if I could, I'll just read my testimony and the PowerPoint should follow. Thank you again, Senator Agustin and members of the committee. Thank you for giving the department the opportunity to present our proposed fiscal year 2020 budget. DPW's total budget request amounts to $20.6 million. In the past few years, DPW received two major funding sources that was approved for legislative appropriations for our general operational costs. The funding sources are the Territorial Educational Facilities Fund, TEF, and the Guam Highway Fund, GHF. For 2020, DPW's operational costs related to Bus Operations Division will be fully funded by the TEF. Whereas all other divisions, administrative services, highways, capital improvement projects, transportation maintenance, and building maintenance will be funded by the GHF. The amount of $20.6 million for FY 2020 consists of $12.8 from the GHF and $7.7 from the TEF. This is an increase of $781,349 when compared to fiscal year 2019's approved budget of $19.8 million. We have provided a schedule of budgetary comparative tables, attachments, and our justifications to support our 2020 operational requests. Our DPW statutory responsibilities. DPW is responsible for providing government-wide services such as A, daily school bus transportation service for Department of Education and private school students, B, maintenance of school buses, various road construction and earth-moving heavy equipment, and other light vehicles, C, developing and maintaining Guam's roadways to include highway construction, flood mitigation, and road maintenance, D, managing the Government of Guam, GovGuam's capital improvement projects, which also entails permitting and regulating Guam's private construction activities. E, maintaining GovGuam buildings, facilities, and equipment. The Public Works divisions, DPW has 6 divisions. Below are the divisions and their respective program activities. We can start with the Administrative Services Division. This division provides administrative, financial, and budget management and personnel support to all programs under the purview of the department. Some of the responsibilities include correspondence, developing policies, reports, fiscal accounting, budget finance, human resources, control of inventory, property management, storekeeping, grants management, legislation review, safety and security, and research programming, development, and planning. The other division is our Building Maintenance Division. They provide maintenance services, repairs, construction services, and custodial work to upkeep public buildings and other government facilities. Bus operations, they provide and ensure safe transportation services for public and private students to and from their respective schools throughout the school year, to provide safe busing services for school-related activities, and to provide emergency evacuations and other busing services as authorized by the Governor of Guam and or the Director. Our Capital Improvement Project section provides professional and technical services for the government's infrastructure projects and technical support to the community. Our Highways Division provides overall management and administration of the Guam Highway and Village Streets program, including planning, designing, and construction of all roadways and capital improvement projects. In addition, they maintain, repair, and restore Guam's highway system, which includes all primary, secondary, and collective roads, village streets, steel and bridge and concrete bridges, flood control systems, ponding basins, guardrail maintenance, traffic directional signs, street names, speed limit signs, shoulder maintenance, and the list goes on. Transportation maintenance, they provide the maintenance and repair of all the department's vehicles and equipment, and also include vehicles from other Government of Guam agencies. With regard to our general operational costs, that should be, if the individual could go to Table 1. Salaries are our largest cost category, which is about 70% of our total operational costs. Other costs include contractual, fuel, utilities, and capital outlay. Below, or as you can see in Table 1, is the Table 1 up there? Below is the overall summary for budgetary comparative analysis between FY 2020 and FY 2019 in combined funds. So as you can see, you have the table of 2020 showing a total of 20.6. Last year's, or this present fiscal year's, 19.8. We have a variance of 781,000. Table 2 shows it by object categories within the 2 different funds. One is the TEF fund for bus operations. You'll show a variance there of 438. And then under the Guam Highway Fund, a variance of 343 for a total, again, of 781. Under Table 3, the budget breakdown by fund and by divisions, again, it's just by the different funds, and it shows the different divisions that are within each fund. With regard to our operational needs, DPW's FY 2020 budget is essentially a status quo level, which is sufficient to meet current operations based on our department's mandates for this fiscal year. Most of DPW's operational costs are personnel costs, including overtime costs for emergency responders, transportation and highway maintenance workers, as well as heavy equipment mechanics. Other operational costs include the need to purchase supplies and equipment, maintenance, roads and pothole repairs, replacement of parts, tires, batteries, fuel and oil for heavy and light vehicles, and fuel for our school buses, and repairs and renovations of DPW and government buildings. Just as an aside, DPW's mandate to adhere to Public Law 2845, Every Child is Entitled to an Adequate Education Act, requires the Division of Bus Operations to provide additional services to our existing operations. Also included in our operational costs are capital outlay purchases for new buses. With regard to our manpower needs, the staffing pattern for FY 2020 includes funded vacancies. There is always a need to hire additional personnel such as bus drivers, engineers, construction inspectors, mechanics, heavy equipment operators, administrative staff, supervisors, guards, plumbers, and refrigeration mechanics. At the time of our budget submittal, the department was showing a vacancy total of 42. As we speak, we are pleased to inform you that we have filled a total of 14 positions, and 23 positions are in the recruitment hiring process. It is my intent as director, and as I have told you prior, to keep this department fully staffed to the greatest extent possible, especially in the areas of bus drivers, highway workers, mechanics, and building maintenance personnel. Below, we have a table here that shows the past 8 consecutive fiscal years of personnel that DPW lost through attrition and subsequent new hires. The purpose of this chart is to show our historical trend of DPW's manpower resources due to attrition for the past few years. So if you look in Table 4, if you just look at the bottom, over the last over the last 7 fiscal years, we've lost 215 FTEs, and we've only replaced them with 88. I can safely say, if I recall back in the, I think, early 90s, at one point, DPW had well over 1,000 employees. We are down to 270, about 270, is that about right? 270 FTE, close to that number. Table 5 shows you the number of personnel in each different division for FY 2020 and FY 19. With regard to our road repair projects, DPW is requesting $3.1 million for the FY 2020 Village Street projects. This highly successful program involves a partnership between the department and a private contractor selected through the government bidding and procurement process. In the past fiscal years, DPW was given an additional appropriation for Village Street Road resurfacing and repair projects. FY 19, we received $2.9 million. In FY 18, we received $3.8 million, of which $1.8 was from local funds and 2.0 was from compact impact funding. With regard to our bus fleet, I just wanted to touch on that. DPW has purchased 55 new buses from the U.S. Department of Interior federal grant funding during FY 2013 and 2016. 7 buses were from local funds per Public Law 33-149. Our total bus fleet as of today is 168, and that number fluctuates depending on what goes down and then what comes out of the repair shop. During 2019, DPW acquired another 5 more buses from the Diesel Emission Reduction Act, DERA, from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency federal grant funding. For 2020, we are anticipating another DERA grant opportunity to purchase 6 additional buses. As I have stated before this body, it is my intention to have the department purchase at least 10 additional buses every fiscal year to augment our inventory of buses. I wanted to touch Senator and Senators, under Roman numeral 6, our building permit section. This is a section that functions under non-appropriated funds. This division is responsible for the enforcement of building codes and the review and processing of building permit applications for all public and private construction. Revenues are derived from 100% inspection and plan checking fees and 25% from the issuance of building permits. The other 50% of building fees are earmarked to Guam Preservation Trust and 25% to the public library. If you wish, we can furnish you a digest for that as well. Under federal grants assistance, again, which is non-appropriated, DPW receives several federal grants assistance funding. DPW's major grant is from the Federal Highways Administration, FHWA, and funding for FY 2020 is for the construction of primary routed roads and bridges, and we project $14.6 million to be received. Roadway projects we anticipate being funded through FHWA include Route 14, Challen San Antonio, Route 14B, which is the EPOW Road, Route 3, which is presently ongoing, the Route 10 and Route 8 tri-intersection repaving, the T-Gen Parkway Phase 2, select bridges, and the upgrading of traffic signals. Another DPW federal grant is from the National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration, NHTSA. This grant is used to fund and operate our Office of Highway Safety. This office provides educational outreach on traffic safety for impaired driving, occupant protection, speeding, distracted driving, and pedestrian safety. They also work very closely with the Guam Police Department, Guam Airport Police, the Port Authority Police on DUI checkpoints, and the Click It or Ticket program. Lastly, a grant from the U.S. EPA State Clean Diesel Grant Program, DARA, as I mentioned earlier, assists DPW in purchasing new school buses to comply with U.S. EPA's emission standards. Senators, on behalf of the fine women and men working at the Department of Public Works, I'm very pleased to present our FY 2020 budget for your review and approval. My staff and I would be most happy to discuss our proposal and to answer any questions you may have. Again, we're available to discuss this if you need further meetings or hearings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vince. Mr. Arreola. I'd like to also recognize my colleagues that have joined us, Senator Tello Taitigui and Senator Jim Moylan. You know, Vince, you're asking for 700,000
For
on your budget?
specifically?
Increase, that's all. That's the smallest I've heard so far, okay, in the budget. That's why I was wondering.
I think a lot of it also, Senator, is because we do have the federal grants that help us with our highways.
Yes.
And we have that specific appropriation for the village streets. So, and we do fall under a ceiling.
Okay. All right. I'm going to have the oversight chair first ask any questions that he may have, and that's Senator Peter Terlai, and then it'll be followed by Senator Therese Terlai, and then we'll work to Senator Castro, and then we'll continue on to my far right. Senator Terlai, Peter.
Vince, just a couple of
Yes,
questions.
Senator.
On the $4 million that you're asking for the highways, is that for the numbered roads? I would assume that those are federal funds?
No. The 3.9 is local funding, and that's for strictly the village streets, the ones where we coordinate with the mayors as to which village streets within their village need overlaying or repaving.
So that is not the highways, the numbered roads, because I had thought
No.
that the numbered roads are federal roads, right?
Right, that's correct. Yeah.
So I would assume that some of that $4 million that
The
you have
14
done-
million goes to the primary roads, numbered routes.
Okay. So the mayors of each district does present their anticipated road repairs.
Correct.
Okay.
And then what we do is we have a scoring. We do a scoring for each of the roads, traffic, number of traffic going through the road, the condition of it, the easements, the rights of way, and those that are the quickest and the easiest to get out of for easements and rights of way. Those are the ones we go after, and we work with the mayors to get them paved.
Good. So Route 4 from Talafofu, what do you call that? The Talafofu, the roads that goes from
Luzon?
I forgot the name of that, but it goes from there all the way to Inaran.
Okay.
Is that covered on this budget? Because, several weeks ago, a resident from Inaran had mentioned that, the road is in poor condition. So is that anticipated to be repaired?
Not for this coming fiscal year, probably the next fiscal year. We tried to have the FHWA pave those roads, but as I understand it, there's quite a number of easements and rights-of-way that we have to resolve before we can actually pave and or repave that road. And as you know, with federal funds, it's not just, you can't just go in there and pave a road. There's all kinds of conditions, safety conditions, such as sidewalks, ingress, egress, and things of that nature. So it's probably, we decided it's much faster for the Department of Public Works to just do it as part of our a relaying and a repaving from our Village Streets program.
Okay, that's good. Another thing I just wanted, because I'm not seeing on your budget presentation here, is the contractors license board covered on this one, the whole operation and the, because
They're
I
not
thought that the
covered under us.
contractors license board is under DPW, it's not?
They're separate. They're housed in our compound. They have offices in our compound.
But they have their own budget.
But they're separate from us.
Okay,
Right.
thank you, thank you,
Yeah.
Vince. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Terlai. Senator Therese Terlai.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Vince, and to all of you who are here.
Thank you very much.
The presentation is very thorough. Thank you for that. I just want to follow up on the road repair projects.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
you said in FY19 you received 2.9. So that was the regular appropriation in the budget for village road repair, 2.9 million. Have you used all of that?
And that was phase one. Phase one has been completed. Phase two, which is this present fiscal year, is just about completed. There's one, if not two more roads in EPAN that we had some easement issues, property issues. That should be resolved within the next couple months. And then phase three, which is coming up, we just let the bid out, and that's ready for award.
All right. And did you ever receive, there was an additional, supposed to be an additional appropriation in the FY19 for the balance of the Village Street and the Guam Highway Fund as of September 30? All of that additional, whatever they said there was a balance in there, was also supposed to go towards village road repair for FY19. Did you receive any of that?
That I am not aware of. Yeah, we'll have to check it. Is there an amount, or
There was not an amount on that date, but I know, I'm just going on memory now. I can't remember. I thought it was at least 2 million.
I'll have, we'll,
All right.
yeah.
And then, so for the for the 2.9 that you want for, no, sorry, you want now 3.1 for
3.1.
2020. Is the list the same as what was submitted before, the village repair list?
Every year, every phase, the lists are different. Some of the roads may extend. Some of the roads, if they're the same, then, excuse me, that basically means we didn't finish that road because it's really dependent on funding. But
they
for
had
the
come
most
up-
part, they're all different roads.
All right, but they had come up with a village repair list over and over, working
Correct.
with the mayors and then DPW, and you had already done the scaling, right? Or-
Yes, yes.
And so I just wanted to know, so is it the same list, or when you came in as director, did the list change?
We were working on the same list because most of the work was already done.
Okay.
You know, the scoring, the
Yes.
scaling, the easements, the rights-of-way.
All right. And then, do you expect, it says in 2018, you received, in addition to appropriation, you received compact impact. And I think that happened in 2019 also? Did you receive any compact impact?
I don't believe for 2019, but I know in 2018, yes.
All right. Do you expect any compact impact for roads in 2020?
Not that I am aware of, right?
No. All right. Okay, and then I just have, the largest increase in your budget is for contractual. It's about 644,900. Do you know what that is for?
Actually, the increase was in capital outlay, and that was to match the DARA funding for the buses
All right.
of 400-some thousand.
Okay, then can you just double check that? I don't know why
Okay.
I'm showing the 644 increase in contractual. Okay, then my final question is, I received a message in my office regarding bus operators. So the ones, you said you've hired some this term, about
Yes,
20
yes, ma'am.
more. Are they out in the field, or?
There's quite a bit of training before we put them out in the field. If you would like, I could have our bus superintendent talk about training, but it's fairly extensive training before they actually get behind the wheel.
All right, yeah, maybe if you could explain just how long does it take for, once they're hired, to get them actually out running buses?
My name is Frank Teixeira. I'm the superintendent for bus operations. From the time that they start, we need to do their CPR first aid, their defensive driving, the rodeo, and then the driver's manual. And if they don't have a bus license, we have to work with with Revenue and Taxation, DMV. And now that we have a working relationship with them, they're moving it faster though than they were in the past. So we've already got the drivers that we recently hired. They've already passed the test for the driver's license test.
So would you say that 100% of the bus drivers that you have on payroll are now out in the field driving buses?
No, not the 100%.
Oh, why not?
Because we're doing the recertification for the training right now, and we're doing the ones that are out on the field driving, and come the ending part of the training is when we're going to stick them in to do the training for the CPR.
All right. So how many are not out in the field, and how long is it going to take to get them all out there?
They'll be out driving by when the school opens.
All right. Okay. Good to hear that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Chaloy. Vince, when she was asking about compact impact money, keep asking, okay, for more money. She can help you. Anyway, Senator Castro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, my questions are also in follow-up to your busing operations.
Yes, Senator.
Before I present my questions, I want to commend the busing division. I had the privilege to deal with a constituent in the Jigo area, and I sent a letter, and it didn't take but a couple days for them to get back to us and meet us on site, and not only listen to what it was the constituent was asking with respect to an additional bus stop or the poor lighting conditions there. The staff was well versed in their ability to further articulate what the other limitations were, like inaccessibility and how to make it more efficient by connecting certain routes that I didn't know about. So I want to thank your team for being so knowledgeable. So having taken that into consideration, I want to ask the following questions.
Sure.
You articulate here in your presentation for FY20 hiring 143 bus drivers, and FY19 136, so there's a difference of 7. My follow-up question would be, how many bus drivers are needed to service the total number of students you actually take to and from school? So I know 143 stated here is having hired or will hire 143, but what is the optimal number of bus drivers if you had to peg that down?
I can let Frank answer that, but it's
With buses, okay?
with
maximum.
buses, right?
Like I've said in the past, if they give me 189 bus drivers and 189 buses,
Right.
everybody up there on that table and everybody on this table will not receive any complaints of late students or too early pickup or late pickup.
Yeah,
So the number is 189.
yeah,
In a perfect world.
right.
Right, and so one of the things I wanted to bring back to the table again, thanks to your staff for referring me in the right direction, was the opportunity to bring back a previous initiative by a prior legislative body, perhaps to empower the department to hire part-time or limited-term bus drivers, let's say for the normal course of duty from August to May in peak time, I guess. Is that something that the department would be amenable to?
At this point, Senator, we're looking at anything and everything. Because right now, we're running up to sometimes 3 routes for a given school. And that's just unacceptable. We can't do that to the school kids. I know for a fact some school kids are leaving the school at as late as 4 p.m. That's way too late. So, as Frank said, if we get the optimum number of bus drivers and the optimum number of buses, everyone gets one route, the school gets out, it's one route, and boom, you're home. So, absolutely, we'll look at anything and everything to get warm bodies as bus drivers, taking into account that we still have to train them. They still have to get licensed. There's road training and things, road exams. There's safety exams, blah blah blah, until they finally get behind the wheel. So it takes a lot of planning and doing things way in advance, so that we are adequate with our number of bus drivers.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
we are looking at that LTA because that's the fastest way. But again, taking into account, we do want to fill them permanently.
I just want to share for the record, and the chairman, in our prior discussion here, he's also amenable, as is the oversight chairman, on a piece of legislation coming out of the 28th rather, that would give the department that authority. And as I close, I want to say that the management has always been extremely knowledgeable, but I also want to tilt my cap to the hardworking staff, the line staff, people like Benny Ignacio I've run across a couple times out there on the hot asphalt, and he always had the right approach, and I appreciated that. It could be tough. You also have a gentleman back there, forgive me, I forget your name, who was accompanying Mr. Taitano that day, and they were very knowledgeable. So my hat's off to your professional staff. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Castro. Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks a lot, Mr. Arreola, Director Arreola, and your team for that very thorough presentation. I recall you were here just a few months ago for your confirmation hearing, and there were a number of questions that I asked you then, so I'm just going to go back over some of them for some follow-up. Thank you so much for getting us the information about building inspections and for providing that in your report, so that was taken care of. You also mentioned or we spoke about in the transition report, one-stop permitting centers and automation of those functions have been unsuccessful in previous years. Past attempts haven't been as productive as we'd like, and so we had spoken briefly about streamlining and automating the permitting process, and you said that you were looking into updating the processes and trying to get a handle on the technology that was available at DPW. So could you just give us an update on that?
Yeah, Senator, in addition to the technology and new processes and procedures, we also have to take a look at a lot of our old, outdated rules and regulations, if you will. We were just with a constituent yesterday, and we were looking at, what was that thing we were looking at? The flood elevation standards, and that's since like the year 2000. So between that, the bus manual that needs to get updated, well, we have to do an inventory of all our rules and regulations within the department, give them to all the planners and all the professionals and all the folks wearing, management and planner and titles, and we have to take this back out to the public and get them updated because so many of them are way overdue for we're in the year 2020 coming up, and a lot of these things are well over 20 years old. So that was one thing I wanted to add to my to-do list, especially when it comes to permits. We just saw a couple rules and regulations that the private sector is faced with, as well as the government, and these are rules and regs that are well over 20 years old. So, an updating of these things has to happen.
Thank you so much. Thanks also for the update on the bus fleet. And so you were telling us that the total bus fleet as of today is 168?
68. And
Okay.
that goes up and down depending what comes out of the shop and what goes down.
Right, in terms of maintenance
Correct.
and those needs. And then thank you also for giving us the update of your attempt to do additional 10 buses every single
fiscal year, right.
And then, as you mentioned in your confirmation hearing, that was an add-on to the budget, or is that correct?
Like right now, for this coming fiscal year, the DARA grant, in matching with local funds, allows us to buy 6 buses. So I've got to find funding locally for another 4 or 5, and there's discretionary funds that we're looking at. We're looking at a bunch of other different funds under school bus operations that hopefully we can tap.
And under DARA, is that a one-for-one match, or?
I'll be honest. I was reading my testimony. I said, "Oh boy, I don't think." Personally, we've had it, I believe, for 2 years. This is going to be our second year. I'm not in favor of renewing it again because the match is like 80-20. We're 20. We're the 20%. So, we're the 80% actually. So we might as well just, like for next year, I think we budgeted 470-some thousand, and then 85,000 from DARA. What's that? I mean, granted, and then the other thing with federal grants, as you all know, you get a federal grant, there's more strings and bells and whistles attached to that. We probably spend more administrative time administering the darn grant than, to me, if you give me a grant, I want to buy buses and walk away. That's it. And so I'd rather do that on the local side. Might as well just take the local money it's already budgeted for,
Thank you. In terms of the 168 that we currently have, how is that fleet aging? What is the average age of our fleet?
I'll let Frank talk about that, but or Dave there. But I think our oldest bus that we have with us is a 1992. But we do have some fairly new buses that we've been procuring. Some that I believe we brought on board from DoD, and so that's why I said I think if you get 10 every year, within the next 4 or 5 years, boom, we're done.
Okay, because 1992, that bus is as old as Senator Shelton, so.
I was about to say it's older than you.
No, not me, but Senator Shelton for sure. Could I just get an update on what you think the average age of our bus fleet would be, Mr. Chaitna? Or Mr. Richards, sorry.
David Richards, Acting Superintendent for Transportation Maintenance. Right now, we have 104 buses that are 10 years or older, right? I believe there are 59 that are over 15 years.
Thank you very much.
That's pretty significant.
Right. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to working with you in terms of finding funding for those 10 annual buses, if not more than that.
We're also working with GITA because they have some grant funding opportunities, and I've been speaking with the director and deputy director there for us to put in our request for either heavy equipment or buses or things of that nature. And so we're looking at that route. And if you recall during my confirmation, my number one priority was to look for additional funding.
Right.
Once the funding's there, basically a lot of things fall in place.
Thank you. I also want to thank you for responding to a previous question about training for drivers that was on my list, and also for providing all the information for the bus roundtable that we had recently here at the legislature. I think it was really enlightening for us. One of the things that we discussed in your confirmation hearing was having the appropriate DPW staff complete the mandatory procurement modules, and we spoke a little bit about training. And so I just wanted to give you an opportunity. I'm not sure if it's reflected in this budget or how you plan on going about training for the existing DPW employees.
I think a lot, especially with regard to procurement, I think the individuals that are doing procurement are well versed. They still need to go through the 4 models up at GCC. I'll tell you, the issue though is just getting into the class. I was at DOA for 2 years. I couldn't get into the class. So something's got to give on that end. If he wants to do the training, there needs to be openings as well. And we're more than willing to attend. We're also going to look at some restructuring of how the procurement process at DPW is taking place. Having been there at DOA and having seen how GSA works, there's a lot of opportunity there to streamline the processes and make them smoother. Because again, the longer you have school buses or heavy equipment or any type of other GovCom vehicle sitting down waiting for parts, when really parts can be procured in a matter of days electronically, that's kind of where we're headed to right now.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's about it, but I also just wanted to give you a quick reminder or ask you once more. We were discussing about what we had seen on YouTube, the recycled plastic pellets that we could potentially be using for road construction or filling potholes. So if you have any updates on that, I'd really love to hear about that.
Okay, I will.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Vince, what is the cost per bus?
about 120,000 for a bus.
How much?
About 120,000 for a bus.
120,000. Okay,
Let's go higher.
thank you. Senator Shelton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Arreola, for being here, and for all of the team here today. Thank you for your preparation of the budget and for being here to answer our questions. I was just looking through your submission a little earlier, and I found a couple of things that concern me, so if you can just help to clarify. The first thing has to do with prior year obligations for vendors and prior year obligations for personnel costs, because as recent as March 31st, 2019, that's already into the second quarter of this fiscal year, you have $1.3 million owed in personnel costs, but can you help me to understand why we have prior year obligations for that?
Yes, having come into the department, that was one of the major issues that we're faced with. We do have one major personnel cost that has just been settled through the courts. And I believe that is at about the six, if not 700, so close to $700,000 range. We have submitted that case to the governor, lieutenant governor, and the fiscal policy committee for disposition, as we do not have the funding anywhere within our budget to pay for that. And there are other small unpaid obligations from, I believe, increments and merit bonuses and things of that nature that we have to settle as well. Those have been transmitted as well up the line. What other obligations? I think there's a few vendor obligations that we're looking at, and I have been working one-on-one with the vendors. Within the last couple of months, I know a couple have. We've veered them toward the Attorney General so that they can file a government claims. And having been at DOA and having seen the Attorney General handle those government claims, it's much faster than waiting for an appropriation.
Yeah, some that stood out to me were from 2000, 2001, 2002, so nearly 2 decades old, and we're still carrying those over.
Right, yeah, and you know, depending on the legality and the appropriateness of those claims, which are being reviewed individually, we're going to take them on a case-by-case basis, and we'll try to wipe them off our sheet. But I agree with you. There's quite a bit. It was an eye-opener.
Yes, very much so. So I'm glad to hear that you're working on those things.
I can promise this committee we won't sit on this.
Okay.
And I believe I brought that up at some other hearing. Right.
Okay. The other question I have is about contractual services. I noticed that there's an increase this year for about 20% in contractual services from last year. What is the cause for that increase? Exactly what are we contracting?
Okay, yeah. The primary reason for that is equipment rental and equipment repair. You know, a lot of times our equipment is out in the field. If there's an emergency and where our equipment is down south, it's faster to just get a rental of equipment and take care of whatever emergency is up north. It's really a matter of logistics and where we use our equipment. We don't have enough, or if the mayor's call, like at one point I think there was a huge fire in Jotnia, you know, so between us, the mayors and the fire, we all put our resources together and got the equipment up there to dig the fire and extinguish it. But those are the kinds of the issues of sometimes it's faster to get an equipment rental than to transport our equipment from one place to another. We are also in the process of procuring a lowboy, is that what you call it? A trailer. Having come in, I was just made aware we don't even have a trailer to transport our equipment. And so, you know, that adds to the timing and the travel of our equipment. So things of that nature, sometimes it's faster just to rent the equipment. And also there's, I believe, $75,000 or $100,000 there to repair equipment. I think as we speak, I have close to about 15 pieces of heavy equipment that are down. Most of the parts, as I understand, are on order, but still, you know, parts for heavy equipment they're not cheap. They're very expensive.
Mr. Chair, sorry, Senator, if I could just, is that the same amount, that percentage increase as the 644,000 that I had asked about earlier under contractual?
Part of it.
It's 635,000 is what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's part of it. Yeah, but we'll get you the full amount of increases. I don't.
There's 150 that's allocated for village road repairs, in addition to what you've described, right? There is an increase. All right, thank you.
Okay, and then my memory was just jogged to our roundtable the other day for the bus operations and student safety. So I wanted to know if it is reflected in this budget, the need for the communication devices for each of the bus drivers.
We have some non-appropriated funds that I will be looking for. I didn't want to put an amount here and put that at jeopardy because, number one, I don't know how much that communication system is going to cost. So we are putting up a request for information. That should be out of the department pretty soon. And basically what we're going to ask is what is out there based on our needs, and give us some kind of quote or what's it going to look like so we can adequately budget for it. If we can also include that as part of perhaps our grant request funding, then so be it. But nobody at this table has any idea of what it might cost. We could do some extrapolation. One cell phone for maybe $50 a month times 100 employees. That's just real simple math. But we really don't know what it is until we go out there and look and request for additional information.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Shelton. Before we begin with you, Senator Tello, I'd like to recognize a colleague that joined us, Senator Sabina Paris. Senator Tello, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And good afternoon, Vince, and
Good
everyone
afternoon,
here
Senator.
at DPW.
Good to see you.
Thank you so much for all the hard work you do with very little that you have. I know that a lot of you use your own personal finances to get through sometimes, and a lot of times you're still working when you're at home, when you should be with your family. So I greatly appreciate the hard work that you do. And Vince, I've met with you and some other people over at DPW in the last month and a half ago, and we talked about road repairs, which is a great concern for me. And one of the questions I asked, I still haven't got an answer from you yet, was there was an increase in the liquid fuel tax. And I believe it was passed in September of 2017. It was implemented in 2018 of January, it started. Now, from that time, the increase, because you are already appropriated in that budget bill, you already appropriated, I believe, about $2 million. And January of 2018 all the way to the fiscal year, how much money was that additional increase when the increase happened for the liquid fuel tax? How much money did you generate?
Senator, if I can, let me have Linda explain. We, as a matter of fact, we were both walking in and I said, I knew this question was going to come up, but as I understand, initially, and that was phase one, is the entire funding has been spent.
How much was that?
For that project?
Yeah. So phase one I have here on the northern region, central region, and southern region, how much of that, and you use the additional funding from the liquid fuel tax, the increase. The money that generated from the increase, that was used for phase one?
Okay, we used 1.8 when we first got that. That's from the local funds.
Right.
And that was the 2 mil from the compact impact funding. Okay, so everything was completed through the round one. Right. Like our discussion when we had, we gave you a whole listing of all the roads that were addressed. And then round two.
But how much was that? How much cost was that?
It was 1.8 plus the 2 mil, so we used 3.8 altogether for that round one and round two.
Ms. Banas, can you just put the mic in front of
sorry.
you so that, because we're recording this and we have to transcribe.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. No problem.
So
1.8 was utilized, okay,
Yes,
from
from the
what was
liquid fuel tax.
appropriated to you. But this had nothing to do with the liquid fuel increase tax, additional funding that came from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. So, all the money was completed with round one and round two. Those are all that was addressed. The only pending project we have, and that's like 113,000, was for Polino Heights, and that's being addressed currently right now. And the issue is that we have to address a manhole, a drainage, and that becomes a right-of-way issue. So the HMC crews are doing an assessment and working closely with Guam Waterworks to address. So hopefully that will be completed by the end of this month. So right now in the round three, we provided to your office. We're addressing it with this current bid that is going through contract mode. It's waiting for approval from all the respective parties, which is the legal, BBMR, governor's office and stuff. So that's the current island-wide paving road surfacing we're addressing right now. That's the 2.9. So there is no excess right now. Everything has been completed and spent.
I realize there's no excess. My question was, how much from January 2018, when the liquid fuel tax increase was implemented, until September 30th, how much funding did you generate from that additional increase in liquid fuel tax?
Okay, I don't have the documentations right now. Do you have that? We got it.
Yeah, that's the one I was asking for from your office.
January to October prior to?
Yeah, see, when the bill was passed in 2017 for the increase of liquid fuel tax, it was not implemented until 2018 of January. From that time until, the end of fiscal year, there was
18.
additional funding that was generated from this increase in liquid fuel tax. So my question is, how much money was that increase, and did you spend it?
Okay. My understanding is we did spend it. It has been spent. What the amount is, I will work with DOA and BBMR. You'll have it tomorrow morning. I
Okay.
can commit to that.
Promise this time?
I can commit to that.
Okay. Okay, so that being said, the Territorial Highway Fund, Vince, from your understanding, is used for, okay, so let me just go into that. So the Guam Highway Fund,
Yes, ma'am.
according to law, is used for what? What are you able to use this fund for?
It's basically operations of the department, with the exception of bus operations. Highway maintenance, CIPs, administration, building maintenance, things of that nature.
Okay, are you aware that the administration is using highway funds for the Guam Police Department, for DOA, again for DOA at $1,137,000, and is set aside in reserve another $5.4 million. I think that might be going to you, but of the $23 million projected for the Guam Highway Fund,
Yes, ma'am.
23,947,552. Looks like you're only getting 12,890,000. And if I'm not mistaken, the highway fund is supposed to be meant for operations. Oh, it just came in. I believe that fund is going to the mayor's office, and that hasn't nothing to do with highways. And it has everything to do with their operations, but none of that money is used for highways. Are you going to be advocating that it stays with highways, that it stays with DPW, what it's meant to be?
Well, depending on the statute and how it reads, also on the governor's authority and what she is able to do, but and of course how this body sets policy. But clearly, I think given the financial situation of the government, they're going to try to use it and interpret it as broad as possible. That's obviously what's happening. To use it for perhaps police cars, mayors, because mayors take care of internal streets and internal roads and things of that nature, and DOA for administration. I could see that happening, because in any type of funding, you're going to need administration as well. But, what's my position? Of course, I'm going to advocate as much as possible. That's why when it comes to additional funding, as I've told my staff as well, this government is close to $1 billion operation. It's almost impossible to say we don't have money, unless, of course, you're looking for $50 million one shot. But if you're looking for $1 million here, $1 million there, it's certainly findable. I've been there, I've done that, and so, I know what you're saying. Do I advocate and just say, hey, that's Guam Highway Fund, that belongs to all of DPW? I think they're interpreting it a little bit more liberally, but am I sticking my neck in there? Absolutely.
Vince, if there was nothing wrong with our roads, if there were not potholes or roads that are actually collapsing in the south, then I can understand utilizing some of that funding and to make an exception. But there are roads out there that badly, are in
Understand.
desperate need of
Yeah.
repair and should be. And I know that you need the equipment. I know that if DPW, which I know they can do the work, had the equipment, they've got the manpower and the know-how. I mean, you did it in the Gilbaza Road. That was going to cost almost $2 million, but DPW did that with, I think it was only $700,000 compared to $2 million. So
Hamburger
you need
Road
to
also.
advocate for that money.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
keep it at home with you guys.
Yeah.
It was meant for you guys to use, and I hope you do continue to advocate for that, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
The other one is the DPW website. Is that up and running and have all the information that's required by law?
I'll be honest, Senator, I'm not a great fan of websites. I
see,
probably
Vince.
looked at our website maybe 2, if not 3 times. It's just really busy up there, but I've got it. Let me
Vince,
take
you
a look
really-
at it.
Yeah, you really need to do that. I know how old you are and why you don't look at technology. Okay, yeah, we can say that, right?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but this next generation, man, they're all tech savvy.
I know.
And I tell you, people want information instead of going down there and bothering, not bothering, but having to stop people to ask questions. Everything could be done online and
You're
more
right.
efficiently.
They don't want to move. They just want to use this, and that's it.
Do you have someone designated for that department?
Not one specifically. We've got a few here, a few there. So I need to get a handle on it.
Keep that highway fund in your office, okay? And then you'll have the money.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Okay, then the other one is, I was very impressed. Your presentation was simple, precise. You might want to include a couple more things on page 11 on responsibilities, because one thing I know that DPW does is you're required to go to committees, you sit on the ARC, that takes a lot of time and reports, so there's a lot more that you guys
Quite a
do
bit. Appeals
other
board.
than that. Yeah, so update that one, because I know you guys do a lot. Do you have the salary increments, what the amount of the salary increments that you have budgeted for, total?
A little over 100,000.
On the capital improvements, as requested in the $1,088,654, what is this going to be used for?
Where are you at? Are you in the digest, ma'am?
I'm actually, yeah, let me see what page I found that on. Look at the,
She's in the budget digest.
yep, over here on page 5. It's a CIP.
CIP. This one here, the 1
Page
million?
5, you have a $1,088,654.
Yes, this is the division budget for personnel and operations. Yeah.
Where's your budget for capital improvements?
This is funding just for divisions.
Okay.
Right.
So
yeah.
what is your funding for capital improvements?
We don't have funding for
What?
when you're talking about capital improvements like buildings. Are we
Yeah.
going to build a building? This government does not have money to build a new building.
You still
Not
need
with
to
us.
put that in.
Yeah.
And I heard the oversight chair of appropriations say earlier, feel free to resubmit another budget, right, Mr. Chair?
Basically,
That was for the last group. I haven't announced that yet for this group.
Basically, Senator, if a department is looking to build or expand, let me give you an example. Like public health, I think they're going to expand their laboratory up in the north. They solicit, they look for their funding, they get federal grants, which they did receive. They come to us because we go through the CIPs, we go through the planning, we make sure the engineering, the rights-of-way easements and everything are all taken care of, and then we give them the blessing. They get the plans done, we stamp it as well, so we assist with that. But do we fund the buildings? Absolutely not. I don't think that's happened in years. I just can't recall myself, yeah.
Okay.
Typically, capital improvements would be a special appropriation, yeah.
Well, I do know that your building needs some repair. There's other things that really desperately need
Oh,
repair up
absolutely, yeah,
there,
yeah.
so.
You know, I think there's DYA, there's
good to
Department
have
of
it in there.
Corrections,
Yeah.
that need, extensive
Okay.
either renovation or expansions.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I hope you're doing well there. You got a great group of people beside you, so I know that they're there, especially Jesse. Thank you for all your work and continuing to be there. A wealth of knowledge sitting right next to you, so. And I do want that numbers, okay? Please, por favor.
You'll have it tomorrow.
Okay, thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you very much,
Thank you,
Senator.
Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Let me see who I got down there. Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your report. Let's
Hey,
appreciate
half a day,
that.
Senator.
Half a day. So just a couple of questions. One is just in relation to the bus shelters. Okay, you had 600 bus shelters. So DPW is responsible for maintaining those bus shelters as well. So we had that, right? Is that
Well,
correct?
DPW and mayors.
And the mayors
Right.
as well. Thank you. We had that recent incident where homeless were staying in that bus shelter for quite some time. I'm just wondering, it's like it was a long-term situation to finally the person is found another place to live. But in the meantime, as we see these bus stations, if that happens again in the future, I'm just wondering if like a no loitering sign could be, like not in all 600 because that's going to cost an arm and a leg, but maybe just in those areas that you feel so the police can enforce moving people along other than the children who are there to catch a ride on the bus and be dropped off to the bus. Wonder if that's a possibility to consider.
Sure, we can obviously consider that, and then, because once you put the sign, then that really gives the GPD the ability to move people and vacate them. But I'm pleased to report as I mentioned, I must have been, not sure if it was in my confirmation or we're here so many times just last week. Well, a draft, we have, as I mentioned, we would put a plan and a program together to address these bus stops. A draft was just put on my desk, and the plan there is to, of course, get them all renovated, put some new ones out there, but to create a program similar to the GVB's half-a-day spirit kind of thing, is where we get businesses, we get nonprofits, we get even government agencies. We'll approach the senator as well if you're willing to adopt a bus stop. There's 600 of them, and I know for a fact there's a number of families that, because they have a bus stop in front of them, takes care of their children, they're more than willing to adopt the bus stop. So, I hope to get that thing off the ground, and it's certainly going to be beneficial to the community. I know there's quite a number. DPW can't do it alone. Neither can the mayors. There's just too many of them. Especially in Dedido alone, the poor mayor. She and I have so many conversations about this, and it's almost like you have to go there every day. So you figure if a business or a family or a residence or a nonprofit group adopts a bus stop, they're going to take care of it because they have their name on it.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. In addition, with the no loitering sign, then we can keep the kids safer.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Then I'd like to move into the Guam Highway Fund. Again, then that money comes from our vehicle registration, our driver's license, and our gas tax. And so we know at the recent OPA reports where I believe 30% is going to other than transportation highway-related things. And as Senator mentioned also, some of it goes to the Mayor's Council, this Better Public Service Fund, and Civil Defense as well. In 2017, the OPA report also reported $2 million was siphoned, and DOA needed it to pay bills and payroll. That was the situation at the time. But I just want to say I feel confident of you being our director there, coming from DOA, so you know exactly when somebody touches your money and they can't pull the wool over your eyes. So I'm looking forward to you keeping that cash there, please.
Absolutely, Senator. And as I've mentioned in previous hearings here, the word has gone out to my staff. We will not have lapses. We will not return money, not while I'm at the helm. When you give us a budget, you can rest assured we will spend it. And we will do everything to spend money. We love spending money.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Nguyen. Make sure you keep asking for compact impact.
That's on the
Senator
board
Paris?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director, for bringing this presentation to us and
Good
for all
day,
your
Senator.
staff for being here
Yes.
today.
Half a day.
Just a couple quick questions. So if you can clarify, how much money is set aside for road repair projects?
On the village streets,
Yes.
I believe it's 3.1 coming up, 3.1 million.
Okay.
coming up.
Is the road to Luzon, is that part of on the list? to
That's
be
considered a
repaired?
primary road, and as I mentioned earlier, I discussed it with our federal counterparts in Honolulu about getting it paved. But the huge issue there is, and it's not just the Luzon, because we wanted to pave it all the way to, I think, past Inarajan even. There's a lot of land and rights-of-way and easement issues, and that would really delay the project. So I think what we're looking at is, barring if we can't get impact funding, to just mill and repave the road would be a much faster route to do, as opposed to getting federal funding, because there's so many requirements that have to be met. It would be much easier to treat it as a village secondary road as part of the village street roads.
Great. What's the estimated cost of that, if it's treated as a secondary road?
That I don't have a number, but depending on the length and how far we go, we're still looking at it right now, because there was initially, let's just do that road that leads up to Luzon and stop right there. But there's other sections of the road that lead past Inarajan that, sections that need milling and repaving. So, it's since the contractor and DPW is already down in that area, let's just do it one shot. So we have to put the numbers together and see how far it is.
Great. Do you contract out services for road repair, or is it mostly done in-house?
Well, the way this works, it's a great partnership. DPW does the preparation, meaning they mill, they grade, they. You know what, Bo? You're sitting there not saying anything. I think you might. I'm looking at all these guys. I'm doing all the talking here. This is Darren Munya. He heads up the division that partners with Hawaiian Rock. So we do the base prep, and Hawaiian Rock does the final paving. But Bo, please.
Yes, thank you. Darren Munya, Highway Maintenance. So yes, we come in with the equipment and we do the sub-base preparation, and then Hawaiian Rock comes in and does the final paving.
Great. That's good to know. The other thing is staffing. How much staff is due for retirement in the near, future?
We are doing a total assessment of that right now, because word has, in the last couple months that I've been there, there's always retirement. And so as part of our restructuring, I don't want to call it reorganizing, part of our restructuring and putting people in the right place, we have to be prepared for things of that nature. People moving out, people moving in. So, in any type of government organization or business, you have to be prepared for that. And so we're doing a complete assessment of who's set to retire and what positions we're going to have to fill. And so in line with that, as I discussed earlier, we have to make sure that people in employees in certain levels have to get the required training so that they're going to be qualified to move up.
That's wonderful. Thank you. The other thing on your PowerPoint, on one of your slides, you had an item there about compliance, federal compliance with the Dedito Coral Pit.
Yes, ma'am.
And the other one for ponding basins. Can you explain that?
The U.S. Labor Department of Mining, Health, Safety, MSHA, they visited us, when I say us, DPW and Guam in general, about a couple years ago, and they issued us a couple citations for the government of Guam coral pit. One was lack of a perimeter fencing for the area. A couple others were the type of equipment that we use are no longer modern, and they're essentially they're non-compliant and they're not hazardous, but they're just non-compliant with the new equipment that's out there. And then, of course, I think they cited us for the building structure that's there, the office. And so we're looking at some funding. We believe we have some funding in this current budget to address at least the fencing for now. And then we're looking at additional federal grants, like I mentioned, from GIDA for the equipment purchase side if we can't do it this present year.
Great, thank you.
We're on that.
Great, yeah, it'd be great to find some federal grants that,
Yes.
that can apply to this, that doesn't have so much of a requirement to match
Right,
as the DARA funds. One more thing, so the strategic plan for DPW, how does the budget fare in regards to achieving the strategic plan?
You know what, that's a great question, Senator, because when I was reading the mission statement and the statutes that cover the department, the department has so many responsibilities, and as I mentioned before, we're the most visible agency throughout the government of Guam. Primary goal here is really to find the right funding. And I know the funding shortfalls and the funding capabilities within government of Guam. Senator Taitigui brought up a great point. We have to fight for every single dollar that's really due us. It just so happens, though, that this government has other issues as well. So, as I mentioned in my confirmation testimony, my highest priority is to find additional funding so that, in fact, our mission is accomplished, our strategic plan is fulfilled, and our goals and objectives are met. And it's going to take this team and a whole lot of other cooperation from other agencies, such as there's GITA, there's EPA, there's Bureau of Planning, those other agencies that are used to searching for funds as well.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you. Does any other, well, okay, Senator Therese Terlai.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Could I just follow up on a couple of things, Mr. Director? Okay, back to the bus drivers. So I just want to make sure, because, we've got school kids that are going to the buses and, at very early hours, and we've got reports of bus drivers that are driving several routes a day. And then I'm trying to calculate, so you say you have a bus fleet of 168.
Yes, ma'am.
But in 2019, you were appropriated for 136 drivers. And for FY20, you're appropriated for 143 drivers, or you're asking for enough for 143 drivers. I guess I want to know what is, and I was reviewing some of the email I had received over the last couple of years, and I just want to make sure that at the end of the last school year, do you know how many bus drivers were actually driving routes? So under those circumstances, how many bus drivers actually out there on routes?
All of the bus drivers are out there on routes except for the ones that we just new hired.
Okay, so for last school year, how many would that be?
It varies because on any given day we can have 10 to 15 drivers either out sick or on personal leave. So sometimes it goes down to 100 drivers. Sometimes it's up at 110.
And how many do you expect to be out in the beginning of the next school year?
How many do I expect to be out?
Yeah, out on routes on the beginning of the next school year.
Meaning retired or?
No, I mean out doing driving.
Actual driving?
Yeah, driving in the beginning of the next school year.
Maybe, hopefully 115.
Okay, so what happens to between 115 to the 136 that you were supposed to have for FY19 and the 143 that you're asking for in FY20? You won't get those until when?
As I've been there for the last 4 or 5 months, bus driver recruitment is an ongoing thing, and that's just the way it works. I think if we didn't have to deal with the current state of rules or regs that we have to hire bus drivers, we could have them on much faster. But because of that, bus driver recruitment and hiring is just an ongoing thing.
I see.
And so there's pluses, there's minuses.
Are bus drivers ever assigned to do other work for the department?
Well, as I understand, we have, I think it's about 10, if not 11, who are on light duty, and the reason for that is they may have medical conditions, and so we're looking at that as well. If the current GovGuam personnel rules and regs, if you have a bus driver and he all of a sudden falls sick, you have to work within the system to make that individual either whole within the department or find him something within the department so that he can carry out his duties. Even though he's assigned as a bus driver, we have to reassign him somewhere else.
Right. So do you expect those 10 to 11 to continue to be on light duty throughout the next school year?
Not in my, well, in light duty, meaning non-bus driving?
Right.
We don't have a choice, yeah. But because of the classified service, we're going to have to move them to other areas within DPW.
All right. So, but you estimate 10 to 11?
Right.
Of the 115?
Yes, ma'am.
Or 115 plus these 10 to 11?
The 10 to 11 is on light duty, and we are working with DOA. We're doing the under evaluations. We are working with them, and they're filling out the PPEs, which is, it goes on a 60-day period.
All right. Okay, so, and then the primary roads, so you gave us a list of what you expect to complete in FY20, and I guess I wanted to just ask if you could send us a list of what you expect to complete in 2019. Those are, none of those are on this list for 2020, right? This is
No,
separate,
that's
yeah. And then I was wondering, because on the 2020 list, you have intersection repaving. And I was wondering, we had some discussion when we were rezoning in Tizen area that DPW had agreed to open up that access or somehow at the tri-intersection. Is that correct?
You're talking up in Barragata?
Yeah, the tri-intersection.
Yes, Senator. There is a proposal to do that. If we're going to use, again, if we're going to use federal funds for that, I think, if I remember correctly, DOE is a staunch supporter of opening that access road. We have to count traffic patterns and see how that actually is going to impact that intersection. Because right now it's a triple intersection. You add a fourth one, and wait times are going to be a little bit longer. Traffic's going to get stacked up. I mean, that's just an easy one to figure out. So we have to figure that out on how it's going to impact the actual intersection.
There was another route that was touted as the mitigation for rezoning that whole entire property industrial, and that was a route that was going to end up, I think, closer to where Revensax is now, coming out of there somewhere.
Ooh. I am not aware of that, but we'll take a look at that. Are you aware of that?
I'm just curious because when they were discussing these last year, it was like this was a done deal, this was going to happen, and yeah, so I'm surprised they're not on any of these lists. But
okay.
What about so the village streets, it looks like you're spending all the money that's appropriated, except for that increase, it's supposed to be the balance of the highway fund. And right now, so for FY19, when I'm looking at the CRER for April, it's tracking, or the special fund report, it's tracking 1.7 million over the appropriated level. So I'm wondering if you were never given a balance at the end of, it was supposed to be the balance at the end of September 2018 that DPW would get specifically for roads, because we already know this is a finite list of roads that you can do with the 2.9 million, and we were hoping to get you another 2 million to do, hopefully another list like this. It's only like at the most 3 projects per village, very few. But that was supposed to represent the increase in the taxes that the senator was asking about also, and so I'm just wondering if you can follow up on this September 2018 balance, and if there was any money there that's supposed to go towards roads, please, yes, and if they're tracking right now 1.7 million over appropriations, if you can get that as authorized under this also for the same thing.
I will, yeah.
Directly to roads.
Yes. I'll have a very nice conversation with a good friend of mine, Lester Carlson.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Now the Oversight Chair, Senator Pirutuloy, and then I'll be last.
We talk enough about budget and all those things, but we need to talk about the problems that we have in Marizo and Yomata. Is there any plans on just mitigating some of the problems that we have? And do we have the equipments to really pre-position those equipments that needs to solidify the problems in Marizo and Yomata?
You're talking about the flooding problems?
Yes,
Senator. As I've been updated, The biggest problems in both of those two villages with flooding is rights-of-way and easements and private ownership of land. As in that Barcinas area, as you've seen, the water comes down from the river and takes a hard right. Typically, it used to go straight, and because land ownership issues and lack of this and lack of that, they diverted the water to a 90-degree turn. You just don't do that with water. I'm not even an engineer, and I know that. And so that's what's really causing the problem. So we have to really take a look at that and try to figure that out, because this will go. We can be here for the next 20 years, and if we don't change that, it's going to continue to happen. As I mentioned earlier, I'm really excited to have Mr. Timuri here. He's a longtime engineer here in Guam for well over 30 years. He knows this island. He's lived here. He knows the roads. He knows the buildings, and he knows the environment and the kind of terrain that we're dealing with. So, that's we're putting a lot of stuff on his plate. But those are the kinds of issues and problems that hopefully we can solve with his expertise. And I know what you're talking about, Senator, because I've been there even prior to DPW.
Have we, touched base with the Army Corps of Engineers regarding, bringing their people, their engineers, to kind of just, work on the problem that we have? Because that has been a long time problem, so we need to address that.
Yes, I've spoken. I've had a meeting with a representative from the Army Corps of Engineers. I know the governor has personally met with them as well. And I believe they have committed to a number of studies to do here in Guam, to include not just the water runoff and the flooding in that area, but also the seashore protection. Because if you notice down south, a lot of beaches and shores, we've lost probably up to like 20 feet, depending on where that beach is down south. So I know the governor talked to the Army Corps of Engineers about that, and I discussed it with another representative from Army Corps as well. So we are looking for their assistance, both in terms of funding and planning as well.
We might, Vince, you might want to check with the Soil and Water Conservation people, because they do have a lot of federal funds for something like that.
Agriculture?
So, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Vince.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Does any of my colleagues have any other questions before I do my question, and I will wrap it up? Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a follow-up question on that tri-intersection. The other day I had the opportunity with Brigada Mayor's office there to go and look at their plans, what they're looking at for all the fields, their soccer fields. They got some really nice plans to have sports facilities and everything going there. They are very interested in that intersection being open as well, anticipating all the traffic and all the kids coming in to do all their sports activities, all these different teams from Brigada that want to play there. In addition, they brought up to me the schools that are presently there, that there's only one entrance and exit going in and out of this to get to the school. So that I know it would take some good planning, but it would be really beneficial if that intersection was, that street light was there and allowed it, maybe even just certain times of the day or something. But for safety and also the anticipated increase in population, what the Brigada Mayor wants to do, and the growth of the school happening in there.
Yes, I forgot to mention, we met with them also on the same issue. And even further to that, and everyone's talked about it, is opening up another access over by the Guam main facility. So we're looking at that as well. So that would be two ingress and egress areas.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator.
All right, thank you. I don't see anybody raise their hand, so I'm just a few questions for you, Vince. Because most of my colleagues have asked the questions. Let me see. I'm looking at all my questions. I have a whole list, and most of my colleagues asked that. I'm actually concerned about you have 100% fairly funded positions.
Yes,
You
sir.
have quite a few vacancies. Do you plan on
Yes, sir.
filling them soon?
That would be under federal highways, yes. There's a number of positions that
15.
need to be filled, mostly in the engineering side.
Okay.
And again, I kudos to Mr. Tamuri for joining us, because I think that's where we're kind of weak on.
Okay. Moving along on my questions, one of my colleagues brought up the issue about there's an agency that is getting $5.4 million a year appropriated by the legislature that comes out of your highway fund. We would have to sit down, I would have to sit down with you and we'll talk about that because that's going to the mayor's council. And I want to know exactly your concerns about that, and if they're fixing the roads, if they're doing something in support of your mission, then it's understood. But if you drive around and you have to end up picking up what they're not doing, maybe you just need to get the money back.
Correct.
And that's the easy part.
I agree.
Okay?
I agree.
Another note, I heard that you do have the increments in place. It's in the budget, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay, we're good on that one. Okay, that's a good sign. See now, Vince, I'm busy looking for questions for you, and most of my staff, most of the colleagues have asked already those questions. It's great. You're only asking for 700,000 more, right?
That was the ceiling that was given us. I know full well, there's additional monies out there. There's grants funding. There's the compact impact that's coming in. So, we're going to stick our foot in there and stick my nose in there, be a little indicador, and let's get what's due us.
Great, Vince. But exactly what Senator Tello brought up, I've said this on quite a few budget hearings. If you honestly believe that you need to ask and maybe resubmit another budget, not saying that we're going to give you it, but at least it's something we can at least have in our mind that, wait a minute, these are issues that needs to be addressed. So we can look at it. Oh, I just remembered. Medians, the markers on the road,
okay,
and all this stuff.
Okay.
Who's responsible for doing that in the villages? I'm concerned. I run into them all the time with my dually and my Ford, and I'm like, dale, and it's so dark. And I've seen a lot of folks climb it and get stuck.
You're talking the medians?
Yeah, that should be marked yellow or orange or green, whatever color you want it to be, but just something so that people can see it at night.
Okay, okay, I understand. Water blasting and painting. Yes, we handle that.
You handle that,
yes,
not the mayors.
Not the mayors. Yeah. Right, Bo? We handled it,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I've been, Frank and I live in Jigu. Nice when you fix the road, nice marking. After the new road, it's lane. You know what I mean?
Understand.
And that's what I'm concerned about. Okay.
And it's an issue with safety as well. Yes. I understand. Yeah.
And I brought this up last year with the previous administrations that, how they were dispersing the staff out there, 8 here, 8 here, 8 here. Put them all together and just go down Marine Drive and do as much as you can. You don't need to scatter them to make it look like you're doing something. Just go, start from Marine Drive, head all the way down to Yamatic. You know what I mean? And so forth. And, and that's what my concern was, because Marine Drive?
Marine Drive was supposed to, the remarking was supposed to be one of the FY19 projects. That's what we were told.
Right.
It's still in project, right? Because not just September.
No, we're probably going to address that real quick, because as I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned that, but we put Route 14B out for bid twice, and we didn't get any takers. Route 14B is Challenge San Antonio, complete repaving and reconstruction. Having talked with our federal counterparts in Hawaii, since there's no takers, we might use that money and just stripe and remark all of Marine Drive. So it's faster.
Now, when you mentioned that DPW is responsible for the median, right? No? Are you responsible for the grass cutting also and all that stuff?
Some of them are adopted by GVB. Some of the roadways are adopted by GVB.
No, orphan?
Yeah, yeah. Some we do, some is done by private.
No, the only reason why I asked that is because Frank and I passed by Dedo a lot, and it's only almost close to Liberation or some event where it starts to get cleaned up, and it should be done at least every other month. No, I'm being like, yeah, every other month. But I'm just trying to be realistic. The mayor's council is getting $5.4 million of DPW money. And if they're supposed to be doing this, and I've said this on other budgets, and I have no problem saying, sorry, Mayor, it's going back to the agency that's taking care of it. And if that's where it needs to go, then so be it. But if they prove themselves to be doing what they're supposed to do, then sorry, Vince, but they're doing their part, and you appreciate it. But I'm just concerned about that. The
And I've
roads, the medians, all that stuff.
Yeah, I know, it's a dash for the funding, and I've always said, I think if you look at what the mayors have in terms of equipment versus DPW, I bet you they outnumber us in terms of what kind of equipment they have.
Yeah. Now, when I mentioned the grass,
sure.
is that also inclusive of the sidewalks? Is that you guys, or is it
Sidewalks, medians, yes.
all of that? Is you guys?
Any GovGuam right away.
Would they? Okay.
And the problem is I chair the mayor's council and I chair DPW, so I'm caught between a heartbeat and a hard rock. So we'll see.
Okay, but other than that, thank you for your slides. Really appreciate your PowerPoint presentation. And I know your staff are working hard. There's no doubt about that, Vince. I see them out there all the time.
Thank you very much,
I'm just
Senator.
always going to ask the question.
Sure.
Put the heat on the director so they can take care of all the folks. And I really would like to sit down with you and your staff and let's talk about your budget and see what you got, because there's just something missing.
I don't doubt you. We're very shorthanded. If you look at the miles and miles of roadways that we have, and highway maintenance only has 40 personnel. What does that tell you? That's easy to do the numbers there.
Easy math.
Easy math.
Right. Okay.
It's either us or the mayors. Somebody's got to do it.
It's really just us.
Right.
Mayors,
Yeah.
join the crowd or relax. Jesse's shaking his hand. I'm not going to be blamed for this, Mr. Primo and Jesse's there shaking his head, so I'm good. Okay, there being no one else to testify, the fiscal year budget for Department of Public Works has concluded. The committee will continue to receive testimony for the next few days. Please address them to Senator Joe S. @gmail.com. Si Zeus Marcy for your attendance and participate in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. The budget hearing is now adjourned. It is 3:34. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Thank you.